It was a typical Tuesday morning at Klein Motors. Cars lined the lot, and the showroom was filled with the sound of phones ringing, customers talking, and the subtle hum of employees going through their routines. Amelia Pierce, the dealership's manager, stood at the counter, reviewing some sales reports. She was known for her sharp business mind, and she had been with Klein Motors for over 5 years, working her way up from a floor salesperson to management. But Amelia's routine was about to be interrupted in a way she never expected. A figure entered the showroom, a man in a leather jacket, wearing a pair of sunglasses even though it was overcast outside. Amelia didn't think much of it at first, figuring he was another customer walking in to browse. She was used to customers with all kinds of personalities coming through the door. But this man was different. As he walked past the salespeople, there was a sudden hush in the room. Amelia's instincts kicked in. She turned to look at the man, her brow furrowed in curiosity. It was Keanu Reeves. She almost couldn't believe it. The Keanu Reeves, the actor she'd seen in countless movies, the one who had become a cultural icon over the years. She hadn't expected to see him walk into her dealership. She quickly regained her composure, knowing she had to do her job. A quick glance at her staff confirmed that they were all either too starstruck or too unsure to approach him. Amelia took a deep breath and walked toward him. "Can I help you with something today?" she asked, her voice professional, yet welcoming. Keanu turned to face her, giving her a warm smile that instantly put her at ease. "I'm just looking for a car. Something practical. No frills." Amelia raised an eyebrow, impressed with how casual he was. "Of course. We have a wide variety of options. Are you interested in something new or used?" He scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Used, definitely. Something reliable. I don't need a luxury vehicle, just a car that gets me from point A to point B." Amelia smiled, appreciative of his down-to-earth demeanor. She motioned for him to follow her as she began showing him a few options, all the while aware of the odd situation. This was the moment when she should have been focused on her job, but she couldn't help but feel a little starstruck. Keanu had always seemed like the kind of person who was just as humble as his on-screen persona. But what neither Keanu nor Amelia knew was that this encounter would set off a chain of events that would forever change the course of Klein Motors. Over the next few hours, Keanu walked around the lot with Amelia, inspecting the used cars. He asked questions about reliability, fuel efficiency, and long-term maintenance. Amelia couldn't believe how down-to-earth he was. There was no entourage, no bodyguards, just a guy looking for a practical car. As Amelia showed him a few models, she couldn't help but notice how the other salespeople, particularly Dave, were watching from across the showroom. They were all whispering to one another, clearly in awe that Keanu Reeves was shopping for a car at their dealership. Amelia kept her cool, focusing on the task at hand. She had learned early in her career that, no matter who the customer was, the most important thing was always to be professional. Amelia was good at her job, and she intended to show Keanu that. But when it came time to finalize the deal, things took an unexpected turn. Keanu turned to her after a few test drives and said, "I think I'm ready to make a purchase. I like this one," pointing to a well-maintained Toyota SUV. Amelia's eyes widened. "Great choice. Let me just grab the paperwork, and we'll get everything started." As she headed to her office to prepare the sale, her phone rang. It was her boss, Mr. Klein, the owner of the dealership. He had been in talks with a potential buyer for some time now, and he wanted to go over some final details with her. "Amelia," Mr. Klein began, his voice as businesslike as always. "We've had a change in ownership. A new investor is coming in today to take over the dealership. You'll be meeting them soon." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. A change in ownership? That was news to her. She had always prided herself on being in the know about everything happening in the dealership, but this had come out of nowhere. "Who's the new owner?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I can't disclose that yet," Mr. Klein replied. "But don't worry. Everything will stay the same for now. We'll have a meeting tomorrow to discuss the transition." Amelia was about to respond when she noticed Keanu standing by the counter, patiently waiting for her. She gave a polite nod to Mr. Klein and hung up the phone. "Sorry about that," she said, walking back to Keanu. "I'll get started on the paperwork right away. If you want, I can get you some coffee while you wait." "No problem," Keanu said, smiling again. "I'm in no rush." But Amelia's mind was still racing. A new investor? And she hadn't even been told who they were? As she sat down at her desk and began processing the sale, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening behind the scenes. The next morning, Amelia arrived at Klein Motors early, her mind still preoccupied with the phone call from Mr. Klein the day before. She had tried to push her worries aside, but she couldn't help it. A change in ownership was a big deal, especially in a dealership that had been running for years under the same management. As she walked into the office, she noticed a few people milling about in the conference room, including Dave, Alex, and some of the other staff members. Mr. Klein was at the head of the table, his usual stern expression in place. But there was someone else in the room, someone Amelia didn't recognize. And then, to her shock, the stranger stood up and removed his sunglasses. It was Keanu Reeves. "I'm the new owner," Keanu said, his voice calm but commanding. "I've purchased Klein Motors, and I'm here to make some changes. Amelia, you've been doing a great job running things here, and I'm looking forward to working with you." Amelia felt the room spin for a moment as she processed the information. The man she had been helping to buy a car was now her boss. The same Keanu Reeves she had helped just the day before was now the owner of Klein Motors. Her mind raced with questions. Why had he decided to invest in the dealership? What kind of changes did he have in mind? And most importantly, what did this mean for her future here? Keanu continued, explaining his vision for Klein Motors. He wanted to revamp the dealership's operations, focusing more on customer relationships and less on the traditional sales tactics. He talked about a new approach, one that would require everyone to shift their mindset from simply closing deals to building lasting relationships with customers. Amelia was taken aback. This wasn't just a business transaction. This was a complete overhaul of the way they did things. "I've seen what you've been doing, Amelia," Keanu said, turning his attention to her. "You've got a great team, and I think you're the right person to lead this change. I want you to help me implement these changes." Amelia's mind raced. This was it, her opportunity to take the dealership to the next level. But it would require a lot of work, a lot of convincing, and a lot of change. And she wasn't sure how everyone would react. Keanu's unexpected arrival at Klein Motors marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the dealership, but for Amelia. The transformation ahead would be challenging, and not everyone would be on board. But with Keanu's support, Amelia was ready to take on the task of leading the dealership into a new era. As the team began to adjust to the new changes, Amelia knew the real work was just beginning. Amelia sat at her desk, staring at the piles of paperwork that now seemed to be taking over her entire workspace. The previous day's meeting with Keanu had left her feeling a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Keanu's plans for the dealership were ambitious, and she was both honored and nervous to be chosen to lead the charge. Klein Motors had always been a family business, run by Mr. Klein for decades. But now, under Keanu's ownership, everything was shifting. Amelia could already feel the subtle changes in the air. People were unsure about the future, and some of the senior salespeople were skeptical about the new direction. Dave, in particular, seemed to be struggling with the idea of a customer-first philosophy over the traditional sales-driven methods. As the day progressed, Amelia found herself reflecting on what it would take to make Keanu's vision a reality. It wasn't going to be easy. She'd already seen some resistance from her team, but she also knew that change was often met with hesitation. The key, she realized, was to focus on communication and trust. She needed to show them that this new direction wasn't just good for business. It was good for everyone involved. By lunchtime, she decided to address the team again. She'd already sent out an email earlier in the day, but she felt it was important to meet in person. Amelia wanted to speak directly to the heart of the matter, so she called everyone into the conference room for a quick, informal meeting. The team gathered around the table, and Amelia stood at the front, her posture confident but her voice steady. "I know there's been a lot of change recently. With Keanu coming in and taking over as owner, things are different," she began. "And I know that some of you are uncertain about the direction we're heading. But I want to make one thing clear. We are in this together. We're all part of this team, and we're all going to benefit from the changes Keanu wants to make." Amelia paused, scanning the faces of her colleagues. Some looked intrigued, others still unsure, and a few were downright skeptical. "I know it's going to take time to adjust, but trust me, This is the right move. The industry is evolving, and we need to evolve with it. The new focus isn't just on closing deals. It's about creating relationships. Our customers are looking for more than just a transaction. They're looking for a connection. And if we can give them that, the sales will follow. She glanced at Dave, who was sitting near the back of the room with his arms crossed. He wasn't the most vocal, but his disapproving silence was telling. Amelia continued, I know some of you have been doing things a certain way for a long time, and I respect that. But change is inevitable. If we want to stay competitive and continue growing as a company, we need to adapt. I can't do this without your support. I need everyone on board with this new approach. There was a long silence in the room. Finally, Dave spoke up, his voice laced with hesitation. Amelia, I get what you're saying, but do you really think this customer-first approach is going to work? We've been focused on numbers for so long. How can we be sure this isn't just some passing trend? Amelia took a deep breath. She knew this question was coming. Dave had always been about the numbers, the sales targets, and the metrics. But she was ready to face this challenge head-on. It's not a passing trend, Dave, she said calmly. It's the future. And I can assure you, this is about long-term success. By focusing on the customer experience, we're building something sustainable. Sales will follow when customers feel valued and heard. Dave didn't respond immediately, but Amelia could see the wheels turning in his mind. He wasn't fully convinced, but the fact that he wasn't outright rejecting her words was progress. Let's give it a try, Amelia added, her voice firm but encouraging. If this approach doesn't work, we'll reassess. But we owe it to ourselves and the dealership to give it a shot. Slowly, the others in the room began nodding in agreement. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Amelia had planted the seed of change, and now it was up to her and her team to nurture it. Over the next few days, Amelia's leadership was tested in ways she hadn't anticipated. Although some of the staff were on board with the new philosophy, others were still holding on to the old ways of doing business. Dave, in particular, was proving to be a challenge. Despite Amelia's efforts to reassure him, he remained skeptical. He continued to push for aggressive sales tactics, questioning the effectiveness of the customer-first approach. Amelia could sense his frustration. He was a seasoned salesperson, and the idea of taking more time to build relationships with customers instead of focusing solely on closing deals didn't sit well with him. One afternoon, as Amelia was reviewing the dealership's numbers, Dave approached her desk. His expression was grim. Amelia, he began, I've been thinking. This whole relationship-building thing, it's not working. We're falling behind on sales targets. You said we would reassess if things weren't working. Well, we're not hitting the numbers. Amelia looked up from her paperwork and met his gaze. She knew this moment was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. I understand, Dave, but hitting sales targets isn't the only measure of success. Customer satisfaction, repeat business, and referrals, those are just as important, if not more so. We're in the business of relationships, not just transactions. Dave shook his head. That's fine, but if we don't hit our targets, we're out of a job. Keanu wants results. Amelia stood up, her tone steady but firm. I'm not ignoring the numbers, Dave, but we can't sacrifice quality for quantity. If we focus on doing right by the customers, the numbers will follow. That's the bottom line. Dave paused, clearly torn. He wasn't used to hearing a manager speak so decisively, especially when it came to something as fundamental as sales strategy. Look, I'm not saying we have to abandon everything we've done, but we need a balance, Amelia continued. I want you to come on board with this. Give it time. And if we don't see results, then we can talk about what adjustments we need to make. But I'm not going to let fear of failure drive our decisions. Dave sighed, clearly frustrated, but also reluctantly conceding. Fine, but I'm watching closely. Amelia gave him a reassuring nod. I expect nothing less. As the days turned into weeks, Amelia's approach began to show signs of success. While the transition was far from easy, there were small wins along the way that helped reinforce her belief in the new philosophy. One morning, a family came into the dealership, looking for a used minivan. Amelia took the time to get to know them, their lifestyle, their needs, and what they valued in a vehicle. Instead of rushing them into a sale, she listened carefully and recommended a van that she thought would be the perfect fit. At first, They hesitated. They were used to high-pressure sales tactics and couldn't quite believe that Amelia wasn't pushing them into a decision. But after a few more questions, they warmed up to the idea. They took the van for a test drive and, by the end of the day, walked out with a signed deal. "I'll be honest," the father said as he shook Amelia's hand. "I didn't expect this to be such a smooth, relaxed experience. You made us feel like we mattered, not just like we were another commission." Amelia smiled, feeling a surge of pride. This was what it was all about. It wasn't just about closing a deal. It was about making a difference. That evening, she shared the success story with her team. It was a small victory, but it was a step in the right direction. Slowly but surely, Amelia was proving that the customer-first approach wasn't just a fad. It was the future of Klein Motors. Amelia spent the following weeks working tirelessly to integrate Keanu's vision into every aspect of the dealership's operations. The customer-first philosophy had started to take root, but the challenge was far from over. The skepticism among her team was beginning to fade, but the lingering question of whether the new approach would actually drive results still weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Dave, in particular, was still holding on to the old ways. Although he had reluctantly agreed to give the new methods a try, his old instincts kicked in every time a customer walked through the door. He would push hard for the sale, often interrupting Amelia's more subtle approach. On a few occasions, Amelia had to pull him aside and remind him of their new strategy, but she could sense his frustration. "Amelia, I get it." "I do," Dave said one afternoon as they stood outside the sales office, watching customers browse. "But sometimes, it feels like we're not doing enough to close the deal. You can't just wait around for the customer to make up their mind." "I'm not waiting around, Dave. I'm building trust," Amelia replied firmly. "We're not just here to make a quick sale. We're here to create relationships. And if you push too hard, you lose that connection." Dave crossed his arms and gave her a doubtful look. "I've been doing this for years, Amelia. People want results. You can't build relationships if we're not closing sales." Amelia sighed, trying to choose her words carefully. "I know you've been successful with your approach, Dave, but if we're going to survive long-term, we have to be willing to change. This is the future of the industry, and the results will come. Trust me." Dave didn't respond right away, and Amelia could tell he was struggling to reconcile the two approaches. She understood that change wasn't easy, but she also knew that this was the only way forward. That evening, Keanu called Amelia into his office. As she entered, she found him standing by the window, looking out over the dealership lot. His usual calm demeanor was present, but there was a glimmer of concern in his eyes. "Amelia, how's the transition going?" Keanu asked, turning to face her. "It's going okay," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "We've made progress, but some of the staff are still resistant, particularly Dave. He's struggling to see the value in focusing on customer relationships over closing the deal as quickly as possible." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "I figured as much. Dave's been with the dealership a long time, and it's tough for people to let go of what's worked for them in the past. But you're doing a great job. Keep pushing forward. Change takes time." "I know, but I'm worried that we might lose some of our top salespeople if they don't start buying into the new approach," Amelia confessed. "We've already seen a dip in sales this month, and while I'm confident the long-term results will come, I'm not sure how much longer the team will stick it out if they don't see immediate results." Keanu walked over to his desk and sat down, looking at her with a steady gaze. "You're doing the right thing, Amelia. Don't let the immediate numbers throw you off course. You're creating something much bigger than just a sales quota. I trust you to lead them through this." Amelia's heart swelled with appreciation. Keanu's support meant the world to her. His calm assurance, even in the face of resistance, gave her the strength to keep pushing forward. She nodded, feeling more determined than ever. "I won't let you down, Keanu. We'll get there." "I know you will," he said, offering her a small smile. "But remember, the most important thing is that we stay true to our values. Everything else will follow." With Keanu's encouragement, Amelia decided to take a bold step to prove to her team that the customer-first philosophy wasn't just a nice idea. It was the future of the dealership. She wanted to show them how it could work in practice, so she came up with a new initiative, the Klein Motors Experience. It wasn't just a sales strategy. It was a complete overhaul of how they engaged with customers from the moment they walked through the door until long after they drove off the lot. Amelia envisioned a customer journey that would exceed expectations, build trust, and encourage long-term loyalty. She began by organizing a workshop for the entire team. She wanted everyone, salespeople, mechanics, and even the receptionists, to understand that customer experience was everyone's responsibility. It wasn't just about selling a car. It was about creating an experience that customers would remember and talk about. The workshop was a mix of role-playing exercises, customer service tips, and discussion about how they could personalize the experience for each person who walked into the dealership. Amelia had also arranged for a few real customers to come in for a mock consultation, so her team could see the theory in action. As the session progressed, Amelia could see her team slowly starting to warm up to the idea. Dave, who had been skeptical at first, started participating more actively in the exercises. He seemed to be absorbing the new philosophy, although he still had a long way to go. By the end of the workshop, Amelia was pleased with the progress they'd made. She knew this was just the beginning, but it was a solid foundation for the changes they needed. A few weeks later, the fruits of their labor began to show. A young couple came into the dealership looking for a family car. Amelia took the time to sit down with them, learning about their lives, their preferences, and what they truly needed in a vehicle. Instead of rushing through the sale, she focused on making sure they felt heard and valued. She listened to their concerns, offered helpful advice, and, ultimately, found them the perfect car. They ended up purchasing the vehicle that day, and more importantly, they promised to come back for their next car purchase. "I've never had an experience like this before," the husband said, smiling as he shook Amelia's hand. "You really took the time to listen. We'll definitely recommend you to our friends." The sale was a success, but the best part was the feeling of satisfaction that Amelia had done more than just make a sale. She had made a connection, and that connection, Amelia believed, would lead to future sales, customer loyalty, and referrals. Later that evening, as she sat at her desk reviewing the paperwork, Keanu dropped by her office. "That was a great sale today," he said, leaning against the doorframe with a smile. "How did it feel?" "It felt right," Amelia replied, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "This is what it's all about. I think we're finally turning the corner." Keanu nodded. "I knew you could do it. You've got the team on the right track." Amelia couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. They were beginning to see the results. It wasn't going to be an overnight success, but they were moving in the right direction. The hardest part was behind them, but there would still be many obstacles to overcome. Amelia wasn't naive enough to think the challenges were gone, but for the first time in a long while, she felt confident that Klein Motors was on the right path. The weeks following Amelia's workshop saw a notable shift at Klein Motors. The customer-first approach was slowly but steadily taking hold among the staff, although it was clear that some were adjusting more easily than others. Dave, for example, had begun to understand the new strategy on a conceptual level, but he still hadn't fully embraced it in his day-to-day interactions with customers. His stubborn adherence to old-school tactics made it a bit of a struggle, but Amelia remained patient with him. Meanwhile, other team members, such as Sarah, the youngest salesperson, had embraced the shift enthusiastically. She seemed to grasp the importance of building trust with clients right away, taking extra time to explain each car's features and even follow up after a sale to ensure satisfaction. Her customer satisfaction scores were skyrocketing, and she had quickly become one of Amelia's biggest champions. Amelia had become more confident in her leadership role, taking on more responsibilities as Keanu allowed her to manage not only day-to-day operations, but also the dealership's marketing direction. Keanu's relaxed attitude about the process gave her the freedom to experiment with new ideas without the constant pressure of making immediate changes. One of the initiatives that Amelia had been working on was the dealership's online presence. She understood that the future of car sales was no longer solely in face-to-face transactions. Customers were starting their car-buying journeys online, researching cars, reading reviews, and comparing prices. If Klein Motors wanted to remain competitive, they had to meet customers where they were, online. To do this, Amelia worked with the dealership's marketing team to revamp their website. They made it easier for customers to navigate, included customer testimonials prominently, and provided more detailed information about every car in their inventory. She even suggested a blog on the website that could help customers with everything from car maintenance tips to the best family cars of the year. One morning, she sat down with the dealership's social media manager, Chloe, to discuss how they could use platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to highlight the customer experience at Klein Motors. Amelia's goal was to make sure every post conveyed the company's commitment to providing a personal, customer-centric experience. Whether it was sharing photos of happy customers with their new cars, posting behind-the-scenes footage of the team working together, or even offering sneak peeks of new inventory. We need to show people that we're not just about selling cars, Amelia explained to Chloe. We're about creating lasting relationships. We want our customers to feel like they're part of the Klein Motors family. Chloe smiled and nodded, already starting to brainstorm ideas. I love that. People want to feel like they matter, and when they do, they're more likely to recommend us to their friends. Amelia's confidence grew as she saw the results. Their online engagement increased steadily, and the dealership's reputation began to shift. Instead of being known for the typical sleazy vibe, customers were now starting to associate Klein Motors with trustworthiness, personalized service, and community. Amelia knew that this reputation would not only help them close more sales, but also build long-term loyalty. As Amelia grew more immersed in the daily grind at Klein Motors, she found herself balancing an increasing number of responsibilities. The dealership's progress was exciting, but it came with its own set of pressures. She had already begun to tackle the internal resistance among the staff, and she could see the results of their efforts in the improved customer satisfaction ratings and sales numbers. But as the business began to thrive, Amelia was feeling the toll it was taking on her personal life. Her relationship with her fiancé, Mark, was beginning to show signs of strain. He had always been supportive of her career ambitions, but lately, he seemed frustrated by her constant work commitments. There were days when she barely had time to check in with him, let alone make time for their usual dinner dates or weekend outings. One evening, after another long day at the dealership, Amelia came home to find Mark sitting on the couch, his arms crossed, an unreadable expression on his face. Amelia immediately sensed something was off. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, trying to sound casual as she kicked off her shoes and walked into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. "It was fine," Mark replied, his voice tight. "I've been thinking, though, when was the last time we spent a real evening together? I mean, it's like you're always at the dealership now." Amelia's heart sank. She knew this conversation was coming, but it still hit her hard. "I'm sorry, Mark," she said, sitting down next to him. "I've just been really focused on Klein Motors right now. There's a lot of changes happening, and I'm trying to make sure we get everything right." Mark sighed and turned to face her. "I get that, Amelia. I really do. But I miss you. And I'm starting to feel like your career is more important than us." Amelia reached out and took his hand, her voice soft. "You know that's not true. But right now, this job feels like it's all I can focus on. I want to make this work. I want to prove that this new approach can really make a difference. But I also don't want to lose you." Mark's expression softened slightly. "I don't want to hold you back, but I also don't want to feel like I'm an afterthought. We've been together for a long time, and I don't want to lose what we have because of your work." Amelia nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had been so consumed by her role at Klein Motors that she hadn't realized how much her absence was affecting their relationship. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I promise we'll figure this out. I'll do better at balancing things." The next few days were filled with long conversations about their future, and Amelia realized that she needed to make some changes, not just in her approach to the dealership, but also in her personal life. Work was important, but her relationship with Mark was too. She began to set better boundaries between her professional and personal life, ensuring that she made time for the people she loved. A month after her conversation with Mark, Amelia felt like she was finally getting the balance right. The dealership was running smoothly, and the customer-first approach was beginning to show its full potential. Keanu's vision was becoming a reality, and she was at the helm, leading the charge. However, not everything was as easy as it seemed. Dave, who had been somewhat on board with the changes, was beginning to show signs of impatience. Amelia noticed his frustration growing as the weeks went by, especially when some of the traditional sales tactics didn't yield immediate results. One afternoon, as Amelia was walking through the dealership floor, she saw Dave standing with a customer, his arms animated as he spoke. Amelia couldn't hear what he was saying, but the look on the customer's face suggested that Dave was pushing too hard. After the customer left, Amelia approached Dave. "Everything okay?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Dave didn't look up right away. "Yeah, just trying to close the deal, you know?" Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Dave, we've talked about this. You can't rush customers into a decision like that. We have to give them time." Dave exhaled, clearly frustrated. "I get it, but I'm not seeing the sales numbers, Amelia. We can't survive on nice conversations and handshakes." Amelia felt the tension between them. She knew this wasn't just about the sale. It was about the underlying fear of change. Dave didn't trust the new approach yet. She couldn't blame him. Change was hard for anyone, especially when it felt like the old way had worked for so long. "I understand you're worried, Dave," she said quietly, "but this is the direction we're going. If we want Klein Motors to thrive in the future, we have to keep pushing for better customer relationships. The sales will follow. I know it's hard to see right now, but I promise you, it'll pay off." Dave didn't say anything for a long moment, his arms crossed in front of him. Finally, he nodded. "I'm trying, Amelia. I really am." "I know you are," she replied, "and I'm here to support you. We're all in this together." The weeks continued to pass in a blur of meetings, sales strategies, and the constant grind of trying to maintain balance. Amelia's efforts to implement Keanu's customer-first philosophy at Klein Motors were paying off, but not without its share of challenges. Dave's resistance continued to be a thorn in her side, though she could see glimpses of a breakthrough. Despite his reluctance, the quality of his customer interactions was starting to improve, even if it wasn't fully aligned with the philosophy she had implemented. One Wednesday afternoon, Amelia was sitting at her desk, reviewing sales reports and customer feedback, when Keanu walked in. "You look deep in thought," Keanu remarked with a grin, leaning casually against the doorframe. Amelia smiled at him but then sighed. "I just got the latest numbers. We're showing improvement in some areas, but the conversion rate's still lower than I expected. I think the team is getting there, but there's still some resistance. Dave, especially." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "I know it's not easy. Change never is. But you've been doing an incredible job, Amelia. The numbers will catch up. You're building something that lasts, not just chasing quick wins." "I hope so," Amelia said, rubbing her eyes. "It just feels like I'm walking a tightrope sometimes. I know the strategy works, but convincing everyone else is a whole different challenge. I'm trying not to be too impatient, but it's hard to see the bigger picture when you're dealing with everyday resistance." Keanu's expression softened as he walked over to her desk and sat down. "Patience is a virtue, but sometimes it feels like we're just waiting for the right moment to move forward. The right team, the right sales, the right mindset." Amelia nodded, absorbing his words. "It's not just the sales team, though. It's the culture. The whole dealership has been ingrained in one way of doing things for so long that I can't expect people to change overnight. They're not just resisting the new approach. They're resisting the discomfort of change itself." "You're right," Keanu said after a pause. "But it's that discomfort that creates growth. And the fact that you're still pushing through, even when it's tough, shows me that you're the right person to lead this transformation." Amelia gave him a grateful smile. "Thanks, Keanu. I appreciate the encouragement. It's been a tough few months, but I'm committed to making this work." As they talked, Amelia's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. It was a quick update about a potential customer interested in a used car. Amelia quickly responded, then turned back to Keanu. "I've been working with Sarah more lately. She's been really successful in the customer-first approach. I think she's starting to influence the others." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "I thought she was still one of the newer team members?" "She is," Amelia confirmed, "but she's adapted to the changes faster than anyone else. She's genuinely invested in making customers feel heard and valued. Her approach is winning them over, and I think others are noticing." Keanu smiled, clearly pleased. "That's great. You're building a culture of trust and support. The more you foster that mindset, the more the team will follow." It wasn't long before Sarah's success began to ripple throughout the team. Word of mouth spread, and slowly, more and more team members started to mirror her approach. Dave, still skeptical, began observing Sarah's methods more closely. One Friday afternoon, Dave approached Amelia with a thoughtful expression. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he asked, his voice tentative. "Of course, Dave. What's on your mind?" "I've been watching Sarah lately. She's been getting some really great results with customers. I don't know if it's the relationship-building thing you keep talking about, but it seems to be working." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. This was the opening she had been waiting for. "I'm glad you noticed," she said with a nod. "I've been telling you that focusing on the customer and building a genuine relationship will pay off, and Sarah's success is proof of that. She's engaging with them on a deeper level, asking questions, and really understanding what they need." Dave ran a hand through his hair, looking a little uncomfortable. "Yeah, I see that. I've been trying to close deals quickly and move on to the next one, but maybe I'm missing something." Amelia smiled, her tone gentle. "It's not about closing quickly, Dave. It's about making sure they're getting the right car for them, something that fits their needs, their life. When you do that, they're more likely to come back, and they'll tell their friends about the great experience they had." Dave looked down, processing her words. "I think I've been focusing too much on the numbers and not enough on the people." "I've been there too," Amelia replied. "But this approach isn't just about the sales right now. It's about creating long-term relationships. Think about it this way. Every customer you treat well today is a customer who could send you 3 more tomorrow." Dave nodded slowly, seeming to come around to the idea. "All right, I'll give it a shot. It's just a big shift for me, you know? It's hard to break old habits." "I know, but I believe in you," Amelia said, her voice filled with confidence. "It might be uncomfortable at first, but you're going to see the results. And when you do, it'll all click." Dave let out a sigh. "I'll try it your way, Amelia. For the team, at least." Amelia smiled and patted him on the back. "That's all I'm asking for." It wasn't long before Dave's shift in mindset began to pay off. He started taking more time with his customers, making sure to engage with them beyond the transaction. He was still Dave, the seasoned, direct salesman, but now there was a little more warmth and sincerity in his approach. The breakthrough came one afternoon when he closed a sale with a couple in their mid-30s. The couple had come in looking for a family car, but they weren't quite sure what they needed. Dave asked questions, really listened, and took the time to show them a range of vehicles based on their lifestyle, not just their budget. He even recommended a model that was a little outside their price range, explaining that it would offer more space and features that would benefit them in the long run. Amelia had been watching from the sales floor, impressed by how Dave had shifted his approach. As the couple left with their new car, Dave walked over to Amelia, a grin on his face. "I think I finally get it," he said with a chuckle. "It's not about the hard sell. It's about finding the right fit. And when you do, everything else just falls into place." Amelia smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Exactly. You did great, Dave." As he walked back to the floor, Amelia couldn't help but feel a rush of relief. The team was starting to come together, and the culture shift she had fought for was beginning to take hold. It wasn't perfect, and there were still bumps in the road, but for the first time in months, Amelia truly believed they were on the right path. She walked back to her office, her mind buzzing with excitement. She couldn't wait to see where this journey would take them next. As Klein Motors continued to gain momentum, the dealership's reputation for personalized service began to spread. The customer-first approach was no longer just a buzzword in the office. It had become ingrained in the company's identity. Amelia felt a deep sense of satisfaction every time she saw a customer leave with a smile, knowing that it wasn't just about selling cars, but about giving people an experience they would remember. But with the growing success came growing pressure. The dealership was starting to receive more business than ever before, and the demand was increasing. More cars needed to be ordered, inventory needed to be rotated faster, and sales targets had to be met. Amelia was caught in the whirlwind of growth, juggling her role as the manager while trying to maintain the delicate balance between work and her personal life. One afternoon, as Amelia sat at her desk sifting through a pile of paperwork, Keanu walked in with a concerned look on his face. "Amelia, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. Amelia glanced up, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "Of course, what's going on?" "I've been getting feedback from some of the team," Keanu started, leaning against the doorframe. "They're feeling the pressure. The new systems are great, but it's been a lot for everyone to manage. Even with the increased sales, I'm worried about burnout. Amelia straightened, concern flickering in her eyes. I've been feeling it too. There's so much going on right now. I didn't realize it was affecting the team as much as it is. What exactly are they saying? Keanu sighed. It's not just about the workload. There's this feeling that we're pushing too fast. Customers are happy, sales are up, but morale is starting to dip. Dave and a few others have mentioned that they feel like they're not getting the support they need to adapt to the new changes. It's all happening so quickly, and they're struggling to keep up. Amelia rubbed her temples, thinking. She had pushed hard for the new approach, and she'd been so focused on the results that she hadn't noticed the strain on her team. I didn't realize it was hitting that hard, she said quietly. I thought the systems were working well, but maybe we're not giving people enough time to adjust. I've been so focused on progress that I've overlooked how it might be affecting morale. Keanu nodded. That's something we need to address quickly. If we don't manage the team's energy and well-being, we risk losing the very thing that's making this all work, the team's commitment to the vision. People won't keep pushing forward if they're constantly feeling overwhelmed. Amelia took a deep breath. This was the kind of feedback she needed to hear, even if it was difficult. She had always prided herself on being a leader who understood her team, but the pace of change had caused her to overlook some important aspects of leadership. All right, she said, standing up. I'll talk to the team tomorrow. We need to figure out a way to slow things down just a bit, give everyone the space to breathe and regroup. And I'll work on a more structured approach to support and training. Keanu smiled, relieved. That sounds like a good plan. Remember, you don't have to do it all alone. You've got the whole team here with you. Amelia nodded, a sense of determination settling in. She couldn't afford to let her team burn out, not after everything they had achieved together. The following morning, Amelia gathered the team in the break room for an open discussion. She wanted to create a safe space where they could voice their concerns, ideas, and frustrations without fear of judgment. The last thing she wanted was for the team to feel unheard, especially when the stakes were so high. As everyone settled in, she began with a simple but honest question. How's everyone feeling? I know the last few months have been a lot, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Is anyone feeling overwhelmed or stretched too thin? There was a brief silence before Dave spoke up, his voice hesitant. I think we're all just trying to keep up. I'm seeing good results, but the pace is intense. I feel like I don't have time to catch my breath before I'm on to the next thing. It's like we're constantly running. I hear you, Sarah added. I love what we're doing, but I've been noticing that some of the newer team members are having a hard time keeping up. They're still getting the hang of things, and we're moving so fast that they don't have enough time to ask questions or get proper guidance. Amelia nodded, taking in their feedback. I appreciate your honesty. I know we've been pushing hard, but I think I've been too focused on moving forward without giving enough attention to how everyone is managing the pace. I want to make sure we're working as a team, not burning ourselves out. A few more team members spoke up, sharing similar feelings of pressure and the need for more time to process the changes. Amelia listened carefully, realizing how crucial it was to give them the resources and support they needed to succeed without compromising their well-being. I think it's time to slow down a bit, Amelia said, her voice firm but compassionate. We've accomplished a lot in a short period of time, but I want us to be sustainable. From here on out, we're going to introduce more structured training sessions and provide additional resources to make sure everyone feels confident in the new approach. We'll also be more mindful of our workload and make sure there's space for everyone to breathe and recharge. The team seemed relieved, their shoulders visibly relaxing at Amelia's words. She could see that they appreciated her willingness to listen and adjust. It was a small but important step toward maintaining the balance between growth and sustainability. We'll make sure that we're all on the same page and that no one feels like they're falling behind, she continued. And if any of you need extra support or have ideas on how we can improve things, my door is always open. We're in this together. As the meeting wrapped up, Amelia felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had made the decision to prioritize the team's well-being, and in doing so, she had reaffirmed her commitment to their shared success. There was still a lot of work to be done, but this felt like the right step toward building a stronger, more resilient team. In the weeks that followed, Amelia took proactive steps to address the team's concerns. She worked with HR to develop a more structured onboarding process for new employees, ensuring that they had the tools and training they needed to succeed. For the existing staff, she implemented monthly check-ins to monitor morale and address any challenges early on. She also introduced regular team-building exercises designed to foster a stronger sense of camaraderie and trust among the staff. It wasn't just about improving sales. It was about creating a culture of collaboration and mutual support. One Friday afternoon, Amelia noticed a change in the overall atmosphere at the dealership. The energy felt lighter, and the usual sense of tension had been replaced with a renewed sense of enthusiasm. The team was working more cohesively than ever, and customers were noticing the difference. Amelia looked around at her team, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride. They had come so far in such a short amount of time, and now they were starting to reap the benefits of their hard work. She walked into Keanu's office, where he was reviewing some documents. "Keanu," she began, "I think we've finally found our rhythm. The team's responding well to the changes, and morale is improving. I'm really excited about where we're headed." Keanu looked up and smiled, his eyes twinkling with pride. "I knew you could do it, Amelia. This is just the beginning. Keep it up, and Klein Motors will be a shining example of how customer-first values can change the entire industry." Amelia smiled back, her confidence stronger than ever. They weren't just changing Klein Motors, they were changing the entire car-buying experience. And she was ready for whatever came next. Amelia had made significant strides with her team and the dealership, but as Klein Motors' success continued to grow, the challenges were becoming more complex. What had started as a small, localized change was now turning into a full-scale transformation of the business. The dealership was catching the attention of more than just customers. It was drawing the interest of competitors, industry leaders, and even the media. One Thursday afternoon, Amelia received an unexpected call from a journalist from Automotive Weekly, one of the most respected publications in the industry. The journalist, Tim Johnson, wanted to interview her about the innovative changes she had implemented at Klein Motors. The dealership's reputation was now spreading beyond their local community, and it seemed that people were eager to learn more about Amelia's leadership and the customer-first approach that had redefined the dealership's culture. Amelia wasn't sure whether she was ready for such widespread attention, but she couldn't deny that it was an exciting opportunity. She agreed to the interview, knowing it would be a chance to showcase everything she had worked so hard to build. She also saw it as a way to further solidify Klein Motors' position as a leader in the automotive industry. The day of the interview arrived, and Amelia was nervous. She had spent days preparing for the questions, trying to anticipate what Tim would ask, but the reality of the moment was different. As Tim walked into her office, he gave her a warm handshake and a reassuring smile. "Thank you for taking the time to speak with me, Amelia," Tim said, settling into a chair across from her. "I've been hearing a lot of buzz about Klein Motors, and I'm really excited to learn more about what you've done here." Amelia smiled nervously, but gathered herself. "I'm glad to be here, Tim. I'm really proud of the work we've done, and I'd love to share how we've approached things." Tim nodded, adjusting his notepad. "Let's start with the basics. Klein Motors has undergone a major transformation in just a few months. How did this shift happen? What was the catalyst?" Amelia took a deep breath, then began. "It all started with a simple idea, treating people like people, not just customers. We wanted to focus on building long-term relationships rather than just closing deals. That meant taking the time to really understand our customers' needs, listening to their concerns, and offering solutions that made sense for them, not just us." Tim jotted down a few notes. "That's a pretty bold approach in an industry that's often criticized for being transactional and impersonal. How did you get your team on board with this philosophy?" Amelia paused, thinking about the early days. "It wasn't easy. Change is always difficult, especially when it challenges long-established practices. But we were lucky. We had a team that was open to new ideas, and we had the support of some key people, like Keanu, who believed in the vision. I think the turning point came when the team saw that this wasn't just about changing our approach to customers. It was about changing the way we work together as a team. Once they understood that, it became easier to make the shift." Tim leaned forward, intrigued. "That's interesting. I'm sure the road wasn't entirely smooth." What were some of the biggest obstacles you faced along the way? Amelia smiled wryly. Oh, there were plenty of obstacles. The biggest challenge was overcoming skepticism, especially from some of our more seasoned team members. People like Dave, who were used to the old ways of doing things. There were times when it felt like we weren't getting anywhere, and I wasn't sure if the changes would stick. But slowly, we saw the results. Once the team saw the positive impact on customers and their own success, they started to buy in. Tim raised an eyebrow. So you're telling me that this shift in approach wasn't just about customer satisfaction. It had a direct impact on your team's success? Amelia nodded. Absolutely. When people feel valued and supported, they're more motivated to do their best work. I think that's why we've seen such a strong team dynamic lately. Everyone's working together, and there's a sense of pride in what we're doing. It's not just about making a sale, it's about making a difference. Tim scribbled down some more notes before looking back at her. I can see how this approach would resonate with customers, but how has it affected your bottom line? What kind of tangible results have you seen? Amelia's smile widened as she answered. We've seen a significant increase in customer retention and referrals. Our sales numbers have gone up, but it's not just about the immediate sales. It's the long-term relationships that are creating lasting value. We're also seeing more positive reviews, which have translated into higher foot traffic. It's clear that the investment in customer service is paying off. Tim's eyes sparkled with interest. And what about the future? Where do you see Klein Motors in the next 5 years? Amelia leaned back in her chair, looking out the window for a moment as she thought about the future. We're just getting started. We've built a solid foundation, but I think the future holds even more exciting possibilities. We want to continue expanding our customer-first approach and implement new technologies that will enhance the customer experience. Our goal is to not only lead the industry in sales, but also in how we treat people. As the interview with Tim wrapped up, Amelia couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had laid the foundation for something truly special at Klein Motors, but the journey was far from over. The interview was a success, and the positive media coverage that followed brought even more attention to the dealership. The next few weeks were filled with new opportunities and challenges. More people began visiting the dealership, eager to experience the customer-first philosophy that had garnered so much buzz. Amelia's leadership was beginning to be recognized, not just within the company, but also across the industry. Invitations to speak at conferences and write guest articles flooded her inbox, and she was quickly becoming a thought leader in the automotive space. However, with the new recognition came a new set of expectations. The pressure to continue delivering exceptional results intensified, and the team began feeling the weight of it. While Amelia had successfully created a culture of trust and collaboration, she knew that maintaining that momentum would require constant attention and careful planning. She gathered her leadership team, including Keanu, Sarah, and Dave, to discuss the next steps. I think we've built something incredible here, Amelia began, her voice steady but thoughtful. But I know that we're all feeling the pressure. We've proven that the customer-first approach works, but now we need to figure out how to scale it while keeping our team motivated and engaged. Keanu nodded. We've come a long way, but I think it's time to start thinking bigger. We've got the foundation, but now it's about expanding our reach and solidifying our place as a leader in the industry. Sarah spoke up, her tone excited. What if we expand our focus beyond just sales? We could start offering more community events, workshops on car maintenance, or even partnering with local businesses to create special promotions. It's about building a community around Klein Motors. Dave, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. I think Sarah's right. We've built a great foundation, but now we need to make sure we're staying engaged with our community and not just focusing on the sales floor. People are looking for more than just a transaction. They want to feel like they're part of something bigger. Amelia smiled at the input from her team. It was clear that they were all on the same page, and together, they could continue pushing Klein Motors to new heights. All right, she said, feeling a renewed sense of excitement. Let's start working on our next steps. We'll focus on expanding our customer experience, building stronger relationships with the community, and making sure we never lose sight of what got us here in the first place. As the team left the meeting, Amelia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but with her team by her side, She was ready for whatever came next. The future was full of possibility, and Klein Motors was just getting started. Amelia stood by her office window, gazing out over the bustling dealership floor. It was a bright, sunny afternoon, and the showroom was filled with excited customers eager to find their next car. She could hear the hum of conversations, the click of pins, and the soft shuffle of paperwork being shuffled around as the sales team worked diligently. As much as Amelia was proud of everything they had achieved, she couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. The transformation of Klein Motors had been nothing short of extraordinary, but with success came new challenges, bigger, more complex ones. There was no time to rest on their laurels. The industry was moving fast, and so was Klein Motors. She turned away from the window as Keanu walked into her office, carrying a cup of coffee and a determined look on his face. He set the cup on her desk and sat down in the chair across from her. "You look deep in thought," Keanu remarked, leaning back in his chair. Amelia smiled, though her expression remained thoughtful. "Just thinking about the future, Keanu. There's so much to consider now that we've hit this next level of success. I know we have the foundation, but I want to make sure we're not just keeping up with the industry. We need to be ahead of it." Keanu took a sip of his coffee, looking at her with a supportive expression. "That's why we have you. You've already done the hard work. Now it's about vision. But you don't have to do it alone. The team is here, and we're all behind you." Amelia nodded, feeling grateful for the support. "I know, and I appreciate that. But I want to make sure we're continuing to innovate, keeping that customer-first focus without compromising the values that have gotten us this far. We're at a crossroads. This is the time to decide where we want to go next." Keanu smiled, understanding the weight of her words. "Well, what's the next big step? Are we talking about expanding locations or creating new services?" Amelia hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet. I think we need to focus on strengthening the community aspect first. We've built a reputation for excellent service and customer care, but now we need to build on that. We've already done a great job by bringing in customers from all over the region, but I want Klein Motors to be a hub for the local community, a place where people feel welcomed and valued, not just a place to buy a car." Keanu's eyes lit up, and he nodded enthusiastically. "I love that idea. What are you thinking?" "I think we should start by hosting community events, things that go beyond just selling cars. We could hold car maintenance workshops, sponsor local sports teams, partner with charities, and even create events where we educate the community about the car buying process. This isn't just about selling vehicles anymore. It's about connecting with people, showing them we care about more than just the sale. We're here for the long haul." Keanu leaned forward, clearly excited by the idea. "That's brilliant. People love knowing they're supporting businesses that care about them. Plus, it'll give us the chance to stand out even more in a crowded market." Amelia smiled, feeling the spark of inspiration igniting inside her. "Exactly. And in doing so, we'll create a strong network of loyal customers who feel connected to our brand, not just because they bought a car from us, but because we've built something bigger together." Keanu's smile widened. "Let's do it. I'm with you, Amelia. You've created something special here, and I know that this new vision will take us even further." Amelia stood up from her desk, energized by the conversation. The direction was clear. Klein Motors wasn't just going to be a dealership, it was going to become a cornerstone of the community. She knew that by shifting the focus to building relationships, they would become a brand that people trusted and loved. As they discussed further plans and potential community partners, Amelia felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had already seen what was possible when they focused on people, not just profits, and now, it was time to make that vision a reality on a grander scale. A few weeks later, the first community event was organized, a free car maintenance workshop hosted at the dealership. Amelia and her team had invited local residents to come in and learn about basic car care, offering free advice on everything from tire maintenance to oil changes. The event was a hit. Dozens of people from the surrounding neighborhoods attended, enjoying the informative sessions, meeting the staff, and building a personal connection with the Klein Motors team. Word spread quickly, and soon, people were lining up for the next event. Amelia had succeeded in her mission. Klein Motors was no longer just a place to buy a car. It had become a trusted, valuable resource for the community. It was a place where people felt welcomed, where their concerns were heard and where their needs were met. As the success of the events continued to grow, so did the dealership's reputation. Amelia's vision of creating a customer-first, community-centered dealership had exceeded expectations. Klein Motors had become an industry leader, but more importantly, it had become an integral part of the community. The team's morale was higher than ever, and customers were genuinely excited to be a part of something meaningful. One afternoon, as Amelia walked through the showroom, she spotted an older couple who had just picked up their new car. They were smiling ear to ear, their faces glowing with happiness. Amelia approached them, offering her congratulations. "Congratulations on your new car," Amelia said with a warm smile. "How are you feeling?" The couple beamed at her. "We're thrilled, Amelia," the husband said. "But it's not just the car that has us so happy. It's the experience. We've never been treated this well at a dealership before. We feel like we're part of a family here." Amelia's heart swelled with pride. This was the moment she had been working toward all along. Not just selling cars, but creating a culture of trust, care, and genuine relationships. Later that day, as Amelia and Keanu sat in her office, discussing upcoming community initiatives, Amelia reflected on how far they had come. "I can't believe we're here," she said quietly, almost to herself. "This isn't just a business anymore. This is a movement." Keanu smiled, his eyes full of admiration. "You did this, Amelia. You believed in something bigger, and now look at where we are. We've built something that lasts." Amelia smiled back, feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. She had come a long way from the manager who had kicked out Keanu Reeves that fateful day. The journey had been filled with obstacles, doubts, and hard decisions, but it had also been filled with growth, learning, and triumph. The story of Klein Motors was still unfolding. There were more challenges ahead, but Amelia knew that as long as she and her team stayed true to their vision, the future would be bright. They had created something special, something that wasn't just about cars. It was about people, and that was just the beginning.